See if it wants to post on my page and then in just a second, or it's connected. With this Mevo. Mevo goes to LinkedIn. Mevo goes to LinkedIn, Facebook, and it goes to all social media platforms at one time.
Cool.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so it should have popped up on your end. On my page. You can just tag it or share it. And then for other people, what they do is like, you want to do it on your own page, if you sit your phone right here,
I'm gonna share
that's you. Okay, alright.
That takes away from your stuff.
Be sure to tag Carlos in it. I think the only person who's a bigger fan of yours than me is Carlos.
Yeah.
He misses
man,
nothing
that was my boy,
when it comes
man.
to Eugene.
Man, that's a soldier that. That's a soldier that.
Good morning, Baton Rouge and surrounding areas. Thank you so much for tuning in to What's Going On, where we talk about what's going on in our city, in our state, the nation, and the world. Yes, thank you so much for tuning in to What's Going On. My name is Dr. James Gilmore, and it gives me a privilege to be here with you every Tuesday and Thursday morning, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. right here on 106.1 FM. That's WTQT, 106.1 FM, What's Going On. So here's what's going on in our world. So Breonna Taylor, say her name over and over and over again. Still no real justice. Unfortunately, on yesterday, only one measly count, and the count wasn't even directed or wasn't even focused on the murder of a fellow human being that was innocently murdered in her bed while she slept by police. The count was something related to the bullets that didn't hit her. It was related to the bullets that went through the wall to the neighbor's house next door. So it appears as if our criminal justice system would rather charge the officers with missing Breonna, the bullets that didn't hit Breonna, that went through the neighbor's wall, charge them with a crime for missing this young lady with bullets, instead of charging the officers with the crime for the bullets that actually killed this young lady. Yes, she is African American, but most of all, she's a fellow human, an American, that was murdered in her bed with what we've heard was a no-knock warrant. Now we're hearing that neighbors say, well, we heard a knock. We need justice. There will be no peace. There will never be peace in America until we get equality, equity, and until innocent Americans are not murdered at the hands of our officers, people who are to protect and serve us. We need justice for Breonna. We need all officers involved to be charged. We need an independent investigation, and we need someone to go to prison for the murder of an innocent American. That's what's going on in our nation. What else is going on in our nation is Michael Bloomberg. Florida passed a law allowing felons to vote, which is a national trend across our country. But along with that, they said felons, ex-felons, you have to pay some fees. You got to pay some fines in order to be able to get your voting rights back. And so Michael Bloomberg and some friends of his raised millions and millions of dollars, okay, like $20 million, most of it of his own money. And they paid for over 32,000 ex-felons in Florida to be able to pay all fines and fees related to getting their voting rights back. And Republicans in Florida are mad at that. They are mad at that. Across this nation, our voting rights have been attacked and have been taken away, and we cannot allow that to happen. That's what's going on in America, in a democracy. We are losing our voting rights. Our voting rights are being eroded by Republicans. I don't see any Democrats in this nation, so don't say I'm being biased, but I don't see any Democrats proposing legislation to take away voting rights or to hinder voting rights. I see only Republicans doing that. What's going on in America? We need to stand up and fight for our rights. And what's going on in our state? Congratulations to Mayor Broome. She received a public endorsement by Governor John Bel Edwards on yesterday. As you know, Mayor Broome is in a race for mayor against several other incumbents. And on yesterday, she did receive the endorsement of our governor, Governor John Bel Edwards. That's what's going on in our state right now, plus much, much more. But I'm going to transition. As you know, for the past month or so, or on through November 3rd, I've invited all candidates seeking office. Any candidate seeking office is welcome to join me here on what's going on. And this morning, I have the privilege of having Brother Eugene Weatherspoon. Everyone knows who he is. You know his fights, and that's fights with a plural, not fight for justice. He fights in plenty arenas, plenty areas for justice, for not just black people, but for all people who have been treated unfairly or unjust. I have Eugene Weatherspoon here, and he is the president of the NAACP chapter here in Baton Rouge, but he's also a candidate for city council here in Baton Rouge. Good morning, Brother Eugene Weatherspoon.
How you doing, brother? It's Eugene Weatherspoon Collins.
Collins, yes, I'm sorry. Collins, Eugene's Collins. So I got some Weatherspoons in my family, so forgive me for just not adding the Collins to it. But I got some Weather, and you know that we've talked about that. I know some Weatherspoons and that are connected to my family, and so I always remember you. But yes, Eugene Weatherspoon Collins is in my studio this morning. For those who don't know a little bit about who you are, tell us about who you are, where you're from, who your mama is, where'd you go to high school and college. Let folks know, because again, we know your fights, but tell us a little bit about Eugene.
So, man, I come from Boulevard Baton, right, which is an area on the west side of Baton Rouge High, right, on the other side of Baton Rouge High. Some of us might even call it Top, but when I was growing up there, they called it Boulevard Bottom. Boulevard froze up. I grew up there, raised by.
What street did you grow up on?
Evergreen Drive.
Evergreen Drive.
Right there, Evergreen and Louisiana Avenue. Lived there all of my youth and a good portion of my adult life. Moved for about 5 years and came back to the district about 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
And this has been home to me all of my life at this point. Right?
Okay.
Raised by a grandfather, old tough man. So, my dad, who was a scaffoler at local plants, a member of the union. Very, tough.
Do you remember which union? My dad was a member of Local 1177.
I don't remember.
Right there on Government Street.
Okay. Carpenters Union, I think.
Okay.
For airlines.
Okay, gotcha.
My mom is a city bus driver. To this day, she still drives a city bus. My aunts, who helped raise me, I remember looking through some of the photo albums, and they used to carry me on their hip down at McKinley High and sitting in the lockers.
Wow. Where'd you go to high school?
I went to high school at Terra High.
Terra High School, okay.
I went to McKinley Middle Magnet.
Okay.
And man, loved my Trojans, but I remember coming up, I wanted to go to McKinley so bad.
So what made you go to Terrell?
At that point, they had changed the districts there.
You're absolutely right.
M&M transfers and
I did the transfer bus.
Yeah, you lived 5 minutes from McKinley, but you had to go to Terrell. So I was kind of stuck in that cycle, but loved being a Trojan. Going to Terrell is one of the proudest things I've done. And I've studied sociology and social sciences.
Okay.
I have a degree in that from Broward University.
Okay.
I have 17 years of experience in public health. I started at the Baton Rouge AIDS Society as Director of Education and Prevention, where I worked for a number of years there around HIV prevention, advocacy, and testing. I went on to work for Metro Health, which is located in the U.S. Wellness Center, and I worked there for some time around prevention and testing. I moved on to the Louisiana Department of Health and Hospitals, where I monitored their HIV contracts throughout the Region 2, which is Baton Rouge and surrounding parishes. I also did Lafayette in New Orleans for a spell for the Louisiana Department of Health and Hospitals for over a decade. Currently, I work for Open Healthcare Center, and I run their heart clinic, which is I'm the director at Heart Clinic, which is the largest standalone STD clinic in the region. Many folks forget that my work actually started in public health advocacy.
Well, that's what I want to talk about, because again, everybody knows you for your fights for justice, for whatever. I mean, you are there for whatever is going on in our state and our nation and locally where there's injustice. But you spent, like you said, over 15 years fighting an epidemic called HIV and AIDS in this community. Tell us about your fight, because that's where I think many of us that know your work or have studied your work, and I want the public to know that you've been out here on the battlefield for over 15 years fighting HIV and AIDS in Baton Rouge. Yeah, and that's a fight.
17 now.
17 now. Okay, you're getting a little older. Okay. fighting this fight. Tell us about that fight, and tell us about your journey and the work that you did for and that you're doing right now to fight that disease in our city.
Still currently, stigma continues to be the biggest barrier to folks receiving services around HIV and STDs, and it's strange that now that I'm more in the civil rights and equity arena, but the fight's closely aligned, right? For years, we would look at what we call targeted zip codes. We would target our services in those zip codes to reach the most impacted populations, because the public health strategy is proven if you want to change something, you got to hit something on the head. But for years, you looked at the HIV cases, the targeted zip codes were always the top 3 zip codes, consistently with 7802, 7805, 7806. But when you started to look at those things, and this would really expanded my fight outside of just public health. 7802, 7805, 7806, they were also the top zip codes for truancy, poor educational outcomes, food deserts. So you started to see that HIV was a disease of poverty. Very few other things would factor in, but it was a disease of poverty. So you couldn't attack the communities in a way of trying to make their health care better without attacking all the other issues listed.
So you saw all those issues over 17 years, and you still do all those issues that are symptoms of poverty.
Oh, definitely. You're talking about 17 years of policy work. There's folks that will tout their policy work that are running against me, but very few have actually put those thoughts into work.
At least they haven't demonstrated in their campaigns, because I can absolutely say that when I looked at all of the bios and all of the backgrounds of you and your opponents, your grassroots efforts in policy and creating change and actually trying to attack the real social ills of our city and community. I mean, by far, you've been on that journey a very long time.
Yeah, and it all started in public health, right? It all started in public health and HIV advocacy and prevention for decades, right? Decades at this point. And folks forget, like, I was doing that during the day at that point, and coaching a football team at night. Raptors, right?
Oh, okay. So you coach football team?
Yeah, I coached a football team for about 10 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I coached with Coach Chuck, who was our team president with the Baton Rouge Raptors, and I coached the C team and the A team. It's crazy now. I get to see those boys.
Chuck. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I see those boys now, man, and they like got families. And you know, one cat hit me up and wishing me luck on my race. He's in the military now with kids and wife. And I'm like, it makes you feel old too.
Right,
man.
right.
I remember when this kid was like 5 or 6, and now he's, you know, a family man.
But it shows the influence that you've had on young people's lives in your tenure, in your time of service.
I tried to do my part.
So, what made you decide to run for office? You know, because you could easily keep doing all the great work that you have been doing as it relates to HIV prevention and addressing all those social ills that come with, you know, HIV and public health. So, what made you decide to run for office to really get into politics?
So, you know, I'm the current president of the Baton Rouge branch of the NAACP,
Mm-hmm.
and that exposes you to a whole lot of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
On a lot of different levels. And when you see those things, and you actually get to learn the inner workings of how these things work, and I saw what was happening in District 10, and this is home for me. I'm a kid at that district,
Mm-hmm.
and not to speak ill to any of my opponents, but
Mm-hmm.
this just means something different to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I grew up.
So you're a kid of that district, but were you one of the many people that's been to court over their residency? Is that weren't you?
So it wasn't exactly my residency.
What was it?
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Nobody challenged where I stayed.
Oh, okay.
They challenged my voter registration card, right?
Oh, okay.
Weird story, right? I went and changed my voter registration card in, I think, January 2018, 2019, very early in the year when I moved to Beauregard Town.
Mm-hmm.
I changed my voter registration card sitting at my desk in my office at like 9:32 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
My voter registration card changed back by itself at 9:35 a.m., like 3 minutes later. And I was brought to court on that down the line. I know conspiracy theories, but the president of NAACP has his voter registration card changed 3 minutes after.
I didn't know that. I didn't know the
changed.
details.
A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
Like literally my voter registration card changed in the system on its own 3 minutes after I changed it. And that's what I was brought to court on. I wish those folks had called me and I could have explained the situation because what we see around voter suppression tactics that you just talked about happened to the president of NAACP. Then some people that look like me took me to court and sued me about it.
Wow. So it's not always white folks that attack us. Sometimes it's our own kind.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes definitely.
So you were you had victory over all that, so that's in the past. And so what's your platform? Why are you running? What's your platform? What do you plan to do? Because we already know what you're doing right now, and you gave us a history of your work in the community over the past 17 years. So what are your goals, or what do you plan to do for those in your district? And let folks know what district you represent, what district you're vying for.
So I'm vying for Metro Council District 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to get back to your original question, why am I running for office? When you ride through that district, right, I remember what it looked like. I remember my grandfather walking there, picking up trash or from the bushes, you know what I'm saying? I remember him and some of his friends like Douglas Adges and Mr. Peanut Man, Mr. Johnson. They would get together and they would make sure that certain things didn't happen on that block. I remember that pride that once existed in our community. Not to say that it's still not there, but I think it needs to be a revival of sorts around pride. But in order to have that pride, we have to bring this next generation along. When we get college graduates, we don't need them to move to another side of town. We need them to stay there. But in order to do that, there's going to be certain amenities that they want to stay there. They want green space. A certain quality of life. Yeah, they want bike lanes. They want affordable housing. You know, I live in Beauregard Town, right? And that's an expensive place to stay, just like some of the other more middle class neighborhoods in that district, right? We have to change that. We have to change the culture around that. We have to make investment equitable. We have to make development equitable. We know that we need public-private partnerships, but the public-private partnerships can't look one-sided. Right. Can't run folks out of the neighborhoods. Exactly. Out of the community. And let's say this, and I'm gonna bring this up, Doc. Gentrification will be a theme in this district, whether we like it or not. I'm one of those candidates that's not going to run from it, right? Now, I don't truly believe that we should be blaming developers for gentrification, because if they buy a space, they want to make money off of it. They abide by the law in their purchase. They purchase it fair and square. Yeah. So that means pay your taxes, people. Pay your taxes. that point. That's
Okay.
a whole nother issue.
That's a whole nother
That's
issue.
a whole nother
Because they
issue.
can't take your property, quote unquote, take your property if you paid your taxes or if you had a will, generational. You know, you gotta make sure your family keeps the property, or others will buy it.
That's just the way it is. So, man, I don't believe that gentrification is the fault of the developers. When we look at a community like District 10, and we know that we're not paying people a livable wage, right? We know that minimum wage in this state needs to increase, and that's something that we can do locally here and do something about. But we hadn't pushed hard enough. We hadn't knocked hard enough.
You plan on pushing for that in the city council?
Heck yeah.
Minimum wage increase.
We should do that, and that should be early on, because we went to Walmart and we saw the folks that worked during COVID at the registers. And we called them heroes, but we still pay them $8,000-9,000 an hour.
Right.
You know, and they got to work 2 and 3 jobs to make a viable, livable income. Right. So that's something that we need to change. We need to look at the programs that exist down at the labor union hall. Could these guys get a TWIC card? Could they get a concrete certification? The problem is not the price of the building. The problem is that the community members that live there can't afford to live in the building. That's the issue. Income. And that's a problem of policy.
Income, right.
Sometimes we blame developers and we let politicians off the hook for not putting policy in place that equal just standard. We ain't even talking about nothing crazy, just standard income increases with the underserved. And those things happen through transportation, right?
Let's talk about transportation.
Like, we know for a fact, right? My background is social sciences. We know for a fact that if you increase transportation in the community, you make it healthier, because now they can get to their doctor's appointments, right? You also increase educational outcomes, because guess what? They can make it to school more often, right? And you also you increase just overall standard of living by increasing transportation. But you got to look at transportation in out of the box means. Not just with increasing bus routes, not just with a light rail system, because I don't know about you, but my mama ain't getting on no train.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's just what it is, right?
Well, they got to get to the headquarters, to the station first to get on the train.
So
a lot of us don't have the transportation to get from the house to the station to get on the train.
And you never walked through the hood and ran from no dog. You don't know what that's like. You know what I'm saying? So I think we need things like that, because that definitely attracts that millennial generation or Generation X's to stay around. So you need things like that, but you need to understand too that my mom ain't walking to catch no train. So we got to look at alternative means. At the clinic where I direct at now, we have something called Uber Health, where Uber Health actually goes out and picks up the person from their home and brings them to their doctor's appointment. We have to look at transportation in a different type of way, and not just the things that we think we see, because this is a district that we're running in that we truly don't know or understand. And that's
people who can't afford bus tokens or to pay for the bus. We need to find incentives to be able to give folks that, because I know a lot of young people who want to work, but you know they don't have transportation to get to work, and they don't have money to get on the bus.
But we got to look at transportation as a means of infrastructure. If we don't sound up transportation in this district, the standard of living will just it may increase, and standards say that it can, and studies say that it can, but it won't increase at the rate we need it to increase at.
For everybody.
I'm tired of riding District 10 and seeing political signs on dilapidated buildings. That's ridiculous.
What do you plan on doing about blight? Because there's blight in your district, am I wrong?
Yeah, it is. And
both residential and commercial. Because sometimes it's easy to talk about somebody's house that's abandoned and blighted, but we got some folks who own some commercial buildings, wealthy people that own commercial buildings that are blighted also. How do you plan on attacking blight?
So we have to understand it holistically, right? And when I say holistically, we have to understand the sources of how blight is developed, right? And we know one of the factors that kind of factor into blight existing is litter, right? But we gotta understand the source of litter. Like, when you hear litter, you automatically think that's from what? People just throwing stuff on the side of the road, right? I took a ride with a lady from Spanish Town, and she educated me tremendously on this ride, right? We went around and we looked at different canals, and we saw collection devices that collected trash in the canal. And I'm just assuming that, hey, this is from people throwing stuff on the side of the road. It washes up in the drainage system, end up in the canal. She told me that every storm could produce about 30 bags of trash that would end up in these collection devices, which happens to be not the right collection devices either, which, when we talk about drainage issues, could be fixed if we put the right collection devices in these canals, right? Some pieces of it. But one thing she educated me on is that a lot of litter come from the back of trash trucks. People put their trash in the trash can. The trash truck picks up the trash can, but they put it on the back of the truck. When you drive a truck, trash pops out. Makes total sense, right? But I had never thought about it in those terms because that's not my background. But so she taught me the source of most litter in the district was trash trucks. It jumps off the truck, washes up in the drains, ends up in canals, and then we're adding something to the various means of drainage issues. But when we think about litter, we typically think about people throwing trash out of their car, not trash bouncing out of their car.
Blaming one another.
Exactly. Blaming one another when we should be out educated folks that if they put their trash in trash bags before they put it in the trash can, you would just have less litter in the district. But we're not doing that because too many times we're spending time talking about what's wrong, but not looking at plausible solutions. One thing I have predicated my career on is not only bringing the issues to light, but looking for plausible and tangible solutions, which I have found the factual source. Because we'll come up with some stuff, James, and just say that's just what it is because I think it, and it has no real source of origination. And that comes from just not knowing. The same things that we see with some of the folks that's running across this town. I'm not calling out anybody in particular, but they don't know these communities. They don't know the source of these issues. You can say reduce crime, but you don't know what it's like to stand on that corner, and you don't know what it's like to stand on that corner and make $1,200 a week. You gonna sell them on a job at McDonald's, making $300 every 2 weeks? That's stupidity. And only person that would say something so dumb is somebody that's not from that.
So homelessness. I think I saw on your platform you talked about homelessness. That's an issue in your district. What are some of your things around eradicating or preventing homelessness, especially nowadays? In fact, next on my show I'll have Ms. Vernadine Mabry of the Office of Social Services who's going to talk about the rental assistance program. A lot of folks nowadays impacted by COVID-19 can't afford to pay their rent.
So we look at homelessness, right? Okay. And I got my card here, right? I take them around everywhere with me now because people like them. But it says we'll take a more in-depth look into housing coordination, coordinated entry points around housing. See, the way folks are intake into housing programs, we need to take a look at that. Is the coordinated entry program around homelessness actually working?
And for those who don't know, you and I know, explain what coordinated entry is.
So coordinated entry is just one point of entry right down there, St. Vincent de Paul, under the overpass, in which this one point of entry is the way folks get into housing resources.
So if you're homeless and you need housing, then you go to the overpass on North Boulevard.
Just one point.
One point of entry.
So there's one point of entry that's connected to multiple programs.
Right.
Is that still the most viable means for homelessness? Because sometimes we'll see that people will pit developers against the homeless population against developers, politicians against the homeless population, policy against the homeless population.
I've heard some businesses,
businesses against the homeless population.
Right.
But are we looking at the people that's serving the homeless population? I think about Trader Joe's, right? And I think about that man walking around that parking lot with mental health concerns. And I think, why in the heck was he even homeless?
Homeless, exactly.
In the first place. Because there's services that exist for him, right?
Right.
Why was he homeless to begin with?
Right.
And
that's really the question also. We want justice for him, but we also got to look at this as we had and it was revealed later, I don't know the family, but he had mental health issues. And why didn't we address that? And because we all know, the studies show it, mental health, with not taken care of, can lead to loss of job, which leads to loss of income, which leads to lack of housing.
So even when seeking justice, how do we truly seek justice for a man if we never look at how or what gaps got in the way of him even being there?
In order to prevent it from happening again.
True justice is making sure the system that failed him is changed, right?
Yes.
And we have to take a look at coordinated entry in that district, because if not, developers will continue to blame the homeless population, and these means that's a policy issue. We know for a fact that only 24% of the homeless population can be served with the current resources. So just from the very beginning, that system is set up to fail, and we hear nothing about it, and we haven't pushed hard enough to make sure that 24% went to 30%, and then we can't get to 40% if we're never at 30%. Like, those are tangible means that, brother, that I have in my toolbox. That's my skill set, right? This ain't a time in this district for nobody trying nothing. I'm just gonna keep it real for a second.
I hear you.
This ain't a time for nobody trying anything. If we put somebody in there that just
and
wants
that
to
has
try
no
something,
experience, and that doesn't have the years of experience that you have.
This district failed. This district failed.
So no experimentation for
Not this time.
I hear you.
Not this time, brother.
And who should they vote for?
Eugene Collins.
Eugene Collins. Eugene Witherspoon Collins. Eugene Collins. Last question. There's a lack of unity in our city, especially as it relates to the current makeup of our council. I know Miss Tanika James was in here this week, and she's vying to replace Scott Wilson in that open seat. The fact of the matter is that just like on our school board, we got a majority white Republican who tend to stick and stay together no matter what initiatives are brought back to bring about equity in our community. How do you think we kind of fix that? Because, you know, if the vote is never in a majority to do what's right, because the minority rules on our school board, because the majority rules on our school board, Republican and white, and it is what it is, how do we bring about accomplishing anything as long as this exists? Unless, again, Ms. Tanika James flips that seat and we don't have a majority white Republicans making decisions in our city.
And good luck to that, sister. Keep pushing, because we absolutely need that to happen.
Right.
Yeah, and I look at this race. We got 8 people running in this race, right? 7 now, I believe. But
Wow.
7 people. Like, I would think, you know, and I'm gonna say this, like,
say it.
if the Democratic Party planned better, a lot of those candidates would be great in other districts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we could really push for equity on the Metro Council instead of what we see now, us just beating up each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's ridiculous to me. That represents old standards that have never worked for us.
Because you've been there at the city council meeting numerous times, speaking up and speaking out on issues, but when that vote comes, we all leave there with the loss.
With the loss, because we gotta look at how the districts are extremely gerrymandered, right?
Say it.
We
Say
know
it.
that the reason why, and I'm just gonna say it, the reason why you have so many people in this race is because this is a rezoning process, right? And let's just keep it real. There's some special interest groups that don't want me to have a pen nowhere near drawing lines.
Right.
That's just what it is.
That's
right.
what it
so
is.
So ask your opponents who go fund it in but
well, and none of your opponents have been have contacted me about being on the show.
Yeah.
So hopefully someone will, but no, none of your opponents have contacted me about being on the show.
Hopefully, but you know, so let's just be clear about that. I think that's one of the biggest reasons you see all these folks in this race, and we have to look at that, because we know for a fact that this town is at this point trending mostly African American.
Yes,
we should have more representation. But I'm gonna take a step back a second. We can't ask for unity on one side and we're not exactly unified on ours.
Wow.
We haven't been together on votes. We've had a Democrat leading a different way.
We're representing your district.
On issues.
Representing the district that you're trying to replace right now.
Exactly. On issues that were important to African Americans.
Yeah, absolutely. And she didn't vote. And she didn't vote in favor of African Americans.
And equity is all about access. Now, and whether we access equity or not, that's on us. But equity is all about making sure that everybody has access.
Yes.
And this district will only be as strong as the least of us. I truly believe that downtown and LSU can be economic drivers for this district. But that don't mean forget about Banks or forget about Old South or forget about Northdale. That doesn't mean forget about those places, because we know that the economic drivers exist there. Those economic drivers have to drive those districts.
Yep.
And
if they have been neglected in your district,
equity.
Call out the neighborhoods in your district again, and you will see how interesting or uninteresting and shameful it is that there are neighborhoods within your district that have been neglected over the past several years, and there are neighborhoods within your district that have thrived.
Yeah.
So let people know what your district boundary lines are, what neighborhoods are in that district, and give them a few last words.
So you're looking at probably from the gates of LSU to about Banks, right, and all of this stuff in between. But when you look,
by the way, I went to Banks Elementary. Shout out to Banks, my neighborhood. Go ahead.
So when you look at the areas around Northdale, they look a certain way. When you look at the areas around Banks, and like even sometimes within our own culture, within our own communities, we forget about Banks, right?
Yes.
Far too much do we forget about Banks.
Banks Head Start is an abandoned building that could be highly utilized in that district.
Highly utilized, right? We forget that, and I'm, you know, I know that some of y'all call it Old South Baton Rouge, but dadgummit, that ain't what the people that live there call it.
Right.
So I call it South Baton Rouge. I don't care if y'all nickname something else South Baton Rouge. They ain't got nothing to do with it. People still call themselves South Baton Rouge down there. But we have South Baton Rouge, right? And brother, I've seen homes and walking and talking to residents that drainage issues from the way canals are built and the way water flows, that their houses are sinking. You know what I'm saying?
And in our community, our house is our biggest asset.
Your biggest asset. So when I see a house literally in South Baton Rouge sinking,
It's disgraceful.
and I see the investment downtown, that's a problem.
That's a problem.
That's a problem. And that's not saying that investment does not need to be downtown. That just says that we shouldn't have the level of investment downtown and houses sinking in South Baton Rouge. That should not exist. It shouldn't exist, man. It makes me daggone mad when I see people that don't understand this district sit there and say that's the most important thing. I thought the people were.
Right.
And brother, if I don't get elected,
No. We don't speak that on this radio show.
Well,
you will get elected.
but when I get elected, brother, I'm gonna tell you one thing, man. I'm gonna do it my way. I ain't gonna change my tone. I'm not gonna stop being the president of the NAACP. If you vote for Eugene Collins, you're gonna get Eugene Collins. That's just what it is.
When is the election?
November 3rd, Doc.
And early vote has been expanded now, I believe, due to your fight.
Yeah.
Again, we didn't talk about any of the multiple fights that that Eugene Weatherspoon does for our community, because we all know about them. If not, you're on this station also, right? When can they listen to you and your fights?
I'm on the NAACP President Show every Sunday at 5 o'clock, and Dr. Gilmore has been a brother. I'm not one to talk about a lot of the things that we collectively have gotten done, because nothing was done by myself. But as we talk about the things, man, we sat down a sitting judge. You know what I'm saying? Like, bro, look around the country, ain't nobody doing that. I'm just keeping it real, ain't nobody doing that. You know what I'm saying? The state trooper thing that we was working on with the story that Mr. Nakamura released, he was said to be fired before he had an accident doing 130 miles an hour at 2 in the morning.
And you led that fight.
That part, right? At a time when we're talking about people never receiving justice around this country, we got a collection of folks that's in your own backyard that's getting some things done.
And Eugene, you are getting it done.
Yeah.
And again, this is my show, so I can say it. I want you all to go out and vote for Eugene Collins. He is what's needed in that district. He is what's needed in our parish. And I want to thank you for being on this show, okay?
I appreciate it, brother.
All right, my brother. Thank you all for listening. Now we're about to have Miss Vernadine Mabry. Miss Vernadine Mabry is about to join the show. I've been knowing this young lady, okay, because she hasn't aged in years. I've been knowing this young lady for a number of years. We actually went to grad school together. Miss Mabry is serving our community. She's serving our parish as director of the Department of Human Development Services. She is a genius. She's one of a kind. I'm glad she returned home. I'm glad she returned home here to be and to serve here in our parish. In her position, I sprayed down the office when I got here, and I just wanted to do that for you. I'm glad she's here with us this morning to talk about just the programs and services that she oversees. So, Ms. Mabry, let's first begin by introducing yourself, who you are, what you do, and things like that.
Good morning, Dr. Gilmore. Once we get off this radio, you're going to be my little brother.
Absolutely. She's my big sister, y'all.
For the next 30 minutes, I am Vernadine Mabry. I'm the director of the Division of Human Development and Services. This department is responsible for all the social service programs that are awarded to the city of Baton Rouge. It's the softest side of city government. Our main priority is improving the quality of life for the residents that live in East Baton Rouge Parish. And we accomplish that by administering several programs within our department. This morning we want to talk about the Office of Social Services, but I'm looking forward to coming back regularly to talk about the many other programs and services that we offer within the department.
We'd love to have that. In fact, Ms. Mabry and I are talking about having her come back on more regularly over the next year or so to talk about various programs, because a lot of times folks don't know what services are out there.
Not only that, Dr. Gilmore, we as a community have to deal with addressing poverty within our community. And it's not something that we can just turn on and off. When some new fad comes out, we address it. It's systemic. We have to be ongoing. We have to be diligent about it. but it's a problem that's bigger than the Division of Human Development and Services. It is a community problem, and it's going to take us engaging the community, from industries to every organization within this community, to address poverty in our community.
Absolutely.
So I'm looking forward to that. But if we could start this morning talking about the Office of Social Services.
And where are you located at? Where's the Office of Social Services all located at?
We're at 4523 Plank Road. That's the administrative office, but we have staff in each one of the community centers within the parish, rather. So there's 2 case managers at each community center, in addition to the staff that's in our administrative office.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, so the Office of Social Services is really our community action agency. I'm sure many have heard that before. So the Office of Social Services is our community action agency. And the whole premise of the community action agency is to improve quality of life, to address poverty. You know, the community action agencies came out in 1964 under President Lyndon B. Johnson as his war on poverty. Absolutely. And so we've been blessed, been fortunate. There's still people in our community that still need that kind of support. Through the various programs and services through the Office of Social Services, we try to assist our local residents.
What are some of those services?
Well, we help with rent assistance.
Wow. Okay.
We help with mortgage assistance. We help with utility bills. We help with medications. We do free tax preparation. We actually go out to the senior places where senior citizens live and do their applications on site.
Okay.
I will say, as a result of the pandemic, we've had to change the way we do business. Because normally it's been, you know, you come into the office and you sit and you do an application. We do everything virtual now. So you can actually go online and apply online.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Or you can call us and schedule a phone interview with our case managers. So we're not doing anything. The public's still not able to come into our facility, but we're still helping. In fact, we're working until 8 o'clock every night processing applications.
Wow, wow. So staff is really working for the community.
We're still working for the community. To date, since March, we've served 6,500 that we've been working. We still have a list of about 1,700 that's waiting scheduled for appointment. But the good thing about the helping with the rental assistance is it's a federal program, and there are documentations that's required. But we will call your landlord on your behalf. If they're willing to work with us, then we can ensure that we can pay up to $1,200 to help someone with their rent.
Wow. Let me repeat this. Wow. So the City of Baton Rouge, City Parish government here has a rental assistance program that will help you work with your landlord, if your landlord is willing to work with you, to provide up to $1,200 in assistance to help pay your rent. Again, you know, even pre-COVID, I'm sure many folks were struggling, but while during COVID, a lot of folks are struggling. So if unemployment isn't enough, or if you didn't qualify for unemployment, and you're on the verge of eviction, our city parish government has a program that can help you. And again, documentation is always required. And I know folks sometimes get disgruntled about the paperwork, but they're federal programs, so you gotta work with the staff and get the documentation. What type of documentation do you all look for when folks come in the door for this rental assistance program?
So what's required is you have to have a picture ID, you have to have lease agreement, you need to have proof of income for everyone in the household, and social security cards.
Gotcha.
So those are things that are not negotiable. We have to have them. And so what we do is, prior to your appointment, I have a triage team that's calling you ahead of time to make sure that we've got all the information that's needed to process our application. We've also put drop boxes in front of the office, so you can just drop off your information and we'll retrieve it and begin putting your photos together. But that's so that when you actually call in for your appointment, that we have everything we need to process, and we can tell you how much your payment is going to be. But we also help with first month's rent and deposits.
Oh wow! Because sometimes that's a barrier. We just finished talking about preventing homelessness with candidate for office Eugene Weatherspoon Collins, and we talked about preventing homelessness, and usually folks can't afford the down payment or the first month's rent, which is required.
Yes.
Most landlords do require first month and down payment, so you all do assist with that.
We will
also
assist with that. The key thing is they have to be able to sustain themselves after we do that.
Okay. Gotcha.
So we need to see that you have income coming in, that you're going to be able to maintain it, because the whole premise of the program is to prevent homelessness.
Right.
So we want to get to you before you get to the point where you get evicted. So yeah, we do all of that.
What are some of the other things when clients who walk through your doors for assistance, what are some things that you're seeing that they need, or what are some things that you see trending more so now than in the past?
I don't know about in the past, but people need better paying jobs.
And Brother Eugene College just mentioned that. It's all about income.
It's all about income. And one of the other programs that we have is our workforce development program, Employee Bureau, that will help folks gain skills, education, and go back to school to get those high-paying jobs. And that's just the bottom line. You make $9 an hour, you can't afford to live by yourself. You can't live on your own.
Yes.
So we have to do something about that. But we have to encourage the community. We got to do something different. Because if what we were doing just got us $9, $10 an hour, it's not going to work today. We got to do something different, and you have to do something different. So part of what we do with the Office of Social Services is that we either, once you do the application, and we'll talk later about something else that I'm really excited about. It would let us know what other programs within our department that you qualify for.
Okay, so when you go in there for the rental assistance, you all have a system set up that you can then talk to your other programs and see what you need.
That's our. It's going to roll out next week, but that's our new human services program that will connect our clients to all the services that we provide, and will also allow us to communicate externally to our organizations that we also work with. So once it's determined that you're eligible for rental assistance, but the bottom line is you need a job, it's going to say you're eligible. It's going to let you know if you're eligible for Employee Bureau, and then you can go next door and apply for those services as well.
Wow, and does it also include things like mental health assistance? Because Brother Eugene and I talked about how a lot of homelessness leads to mental health issues, where people have mental health issues, aren't dealt with, they end up losing the job or can't get a job, which leads to homelessness. So all those wraparound services, this system will then be able to assess?
Well, so we're not the doctor, so we can't make that determination.
Gotcha.
So unless it's a diagnosis,
unless they admit it to you, in their assessment.
But it will allow us to make those referrals.
That's what I mean.
Right,
yeah.
and it will allow the agency that we're referring to acknowledge that they received it and outcomes.
That's what I was
Because
wondering.
the other thing is that we have to really get into true case management. It's not good enough that we're just providing one service and there's no follow-up to find out if the family's doing any better, or if there's no other ongoing needs, or we missed something. So we have to do that ongoing follow-up. And so when we refer out, there has to be communication back to us on how's that family doing, or there's some other needs or other services that we might be able to refer out to. So I'm ecstatic about that, because until a community talks, then we're just putting Band-Aids on it, and we've got to get past that. I'm excited about us using this new system and the data that's going to come out of it, the story that's going to be told in terms of all of the barriers that our residents are facing, and what's the missing gaps in our community. What are the other services that we need to be providing that we're not providing? And that's the kind of information that we need.
Because, you and I both have been on this journey many years. Many years.
The hair is showing it.
It's still beautiful. For those, and when I announced on my social media that you were going to be on the show, so many people had such wonderful things to say about you and your legacy of serving people in this community. For those of you all who remember when they called it the Delmont Service Center, this was the queen of the Delmont Service Center. Now it's named Charles R. Kelly Center, but that's where we met at. So you've been on this journey a long time. So
actually have, Dr. Gilmore. Really, my career actually started in the department that I now give leadership to. I started when it was JTPA. It's Employee Bureau, but it was JTPA back then. I'm going to tell my age in just a minute. But I started that. I have a passion for service. I have a passion for helping others. And I always tell people, you can't talk about what you don't know. Been there, done that. I know what it's like. I have family members that could qualify for every program and service that you want. The bottom line is you can only help people that want to help themselves. I'm that champion. I want to help everybody that's trying to help themselves. I want to be the voice that advocate for those. I want to be the one that find the new programs, the new services that we need to have in our community, right? Something that we can leverage across this country.
I
just have that much confidence. That's exactly right. I have that much confidence in what we can accomplish here in Baton Rouge. Is that we have to do that. So the passion comes from, I know what that's like. I've sit behind it. I know what that's like. Been there, done that. And when you, as a leader, where you can talk freely and open about that, people receive it.
Absolutely.
So I'm able to say things to people. Listen, I want to help you, man, but you got to do some things for yourself. They can receive it because it comes from a good place. I want to help others. And so that's what I've been doing since I've been here. And I'm blessed. I'm blessed. I left here in 2005, came back in 2017. That just, my work wasn't finished.
Work wasn't finished. And again, we're glad the mayor appointed
Ms.
Vernadine back. Thank you, Mayor Sharon Weston Bloom, for appointing Ms. Vernadine back here in this position at DHDS to serve our community. As much as we talk about all the wonderful programs that you have and to serve through the Office of Social Services, I also must let the public know, even in your capacity, if you can't let them know, because I understand you are an employee of the city. But none of this can happen without funding. And funding comes from who you elect people. Funding comes from taking the census, okay? Right now, we are the worst in the country with the census. So I need folks, if you want programs such as the rental assistance program, because none of us are exempt from one day needing any of your programs. I like to also say that, and I think you would agree too, none of us are exempt. One major healthcare dilemma, some of us may be broke. None of us are promised full mental health. We pray for it, but who knows what our mental health may be later on in life. So we need these programs funded through our government organizations, and they get funding through you being counted in the census. Go to my2020census.gov or call 1-844-330-2020 so that you can be counted for the census, and it gets through by the people that you put in office and how you will hold them accountable. That's how these social services programs get worked out, because it takes people and bodies to do this work.
Listen, and if I can just add to that, and I'm so glad you mentioned about the importance of the census. Every program and service that we provide through the Division of Human Development Services is federally funded, which determines how much money we get in our community. You need to know that the dollars follow the count. They don't follow the need. Right. So you can have a great need in your community, but if we didn't respond to this 2020 census, we have left money on the table, and shame on us. Shame on us.
So Office of Social Services is here in Baton Rouge to serve those most in need. We talked today about the rental assistance program to help those who may be on the verge of eviction. They work with your landlord. They do follow-up case management, but none of this can be done without you being counted in the census to fund such programs. Ms. Mabry, would you like to close with any remarks about your office, about your programs, and please also give the address and phone number of where people can get these services.
Again, Division of Human Development and Services, we're located at 4523 Plank Road. For the Office of Social Services, you can still call 225-358-4561. And in closing, I just want to thank you, Dr. Gilmore, for giving me this opportunity. I look forward in a year to come what we can do in terms of keeping human services on the minds of the residents as we engage others to help us address the war on poverty within our community. I'm excited about the new direction that we're going. I look forward to us fulfilling, meeting some of the needs of the people that we serve, and I look forward to continue working with you, Dr. Gilmore. You also are very helpful and instrumental in what we do around here too, and it doesn't go unnoticed.
Thank you so much. Again, thank you so much for tuning in to What's Going On right here on WTQT FM 106.1 FM. My name is Dr. James Gilmore. You can catch me here every Tuesday and Thursday morning, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., where we talk about what's going on in our community, our state, our nation, and our world. My goal is to bring you information and resources to help you be a better citizen and engage you in your community. Remember, don't forget to register to vote. Don't forget to get counted in the census. Don't forget to vote. And again, for all candidates, anyone that's running for office, I think I have one more spot left. If you'd like to come in between now and November 3rd to talk about your platform and your campaign, inbox me or email me, and I'll be glad to have you on my show. Again, thank you so much for tuning in, and may everyone have a fantastic, fantastic day.
Look, you do everything. You do everything.
Just trying to